Hey, it's Jess, and welcome to Becoming Heartstrong. I'm a social entrepreneur, speaker, mother, and business owner, and I'm here because I believe in you, and I want you to live your full potential. My mission with this podcast is simple: to offer you perspectives, tools, and inspiration to help you live with more courage, rebuild after setbacks, and strengthen yourself from the inside out. So each week, I talk to thought leaders, authors, experts, and everyday amazing people who share their stories and outlooks that help you get from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow. Let's get started. Do you ever feel like you have something great inside of you, but you just aren't sure how to bring it to life? Do you ever need some clarity on how to get from where you are to where you want to be? I'm so excited to share a free guide I created just for you. This tool has helped me in my own times of struggle and doubt. It's called Your Future Self Guide. This mini course includes a future self visualization I recorded, a series of journal questions, and some insights from me about overcoming self-doubt and embracing self-leadership. You can download it for free at jessicalindberg.com/futureself. That's jessicalindberg.com/futureself. Let's get back to the show. Welcome back to another episode of Becoming Heartstrong, and I'm super excited about today's guest. We've actually tried this once before and the sound didn't work. And now we're back with Jessica Janzen. She is a speaker, a coach, an author, and a philanthropist, and just an all-around amazing woman. What I love about her story is that she founded Love for Lewiston Foundation in honor of her son, Lewiston, who passed from spinal muscular atrophy. And she's truly an example of taking your hard story and creating something beautiful out of it. She's raised over $2.5 million to support newborn screening for spinal muscular atrophy and the Alberta Children's Hospital in Canada. She's just full of passion and drive, and she loves creating life-changing impact. She's a recipient of multiple awards, and she's done many amazing things. She's also the author of Bring the Joy, a book about following the nudges of your heart. But behind all her titles and awards, she's a helper who wants to help others turn adversity into achievement. And her purpose is to teach and inspire others to do the hard work of joy. Welcome to the podcast, Jess.
Thanks. I'm like, you're gonna make my head explode. It's always weird hearing your bio, but I hope more women just will, instead of being like, oh, don't say it, like, thank you very much. Like,
Yep.
We've worked hard to accomplish crazy big things, and we should be stand in that and be proud of it.
Absolutely. I was talking with another woman the other day, and she was saying something to me to this effect. This is what her friend says, that you should stand on your story. And I loved that idea, right? Like, what does it mean to stand on your story? And I thought about it like almost every day since she said it. But like, how powerful is that? And how important is it to own that? I just thought that was really, really, really significant.
I love it. That's a new Instagram post right there. I was like,
I know. There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, so good. It's so good. So I posted this thing to my stories on Instagram a while back, and it made me think of you. And I want to start there talking about it today because, you know, joy is kind of a complicated topic sometimes when we have challenging stories. And I think it's good to be super honest about that, but like we shouldn't not seek joy in our life at the same time. And so this was the post. It said, you're not healing to be able to handle the trauma. You're used to the trauma. You're healing to be able to handle joy. And so I just want to start there and kind of, what do you have to say about that? And what do you have to say about people who just feel stuck in their sad story and like think joy is so far away?
My initial response is, stop it. It's so easy to sit in victim mentality. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what I talk about, and as I've looked at, okay, like, what do I want to share with the world? What is my message? What's important to me? And what am I so passionate about? And it was this piece of, how do we move from unnecessary suffering? Because I think there is this, and I'm victim to it myself. I'm not trying to say, oh, look at me, I'm so perfect. But
Right.
I've spent a lot of time saying, oh, why not me? Looking at other people and being jealous. I've spent a lot of time like being a victim to my circumstances. And I always say this, you can't choose what happens to you, but you do get a choice in your response. And powerful piece is trauma's happening, and I think on, varying types and the ways, and there's not, your trauma is different than my trauma is different than Bob's and Susan's and Ronnie's and everybody else's. But rather than looking at other people's traumas and saying, well, theirs is worse, or theirs isn't as bad, or mine is hard, or whatever, it's like, okay, the trauma has happened. And now, are you going to let the trauma define you and then basically keep you shelled up, not living a full life when you have breath in your lungs and a beating heart and opportunities? Now, do they look different? Is your story being written not in the way that you had anticipated? For sure. But that's this piece of like radical acceptance. And right
Mhm.
before we started recording, you and I were talking about this, and like, you're in a season of maybe not being able to pursue absolutely everything that you want to in this time frame. There was a season in my life where I had all these ideas and thoughts, and I was, very driven to want to become a CEO of a global company and like lead people and inspire teams. And all of a sudden my son gets terminally ill, and that was like put on halt. And then, my story shifted 180 degrees, and I'm moving in a totally different direction. But I think if you want to access joy, the first part of that is radically accepting where you're at to
Mhm.
reduce any unnecessary suffering so that you can step into joy. And guess what? Grief and joy can coexist. Anger and some of these other emotions that may be associated with where you're at, you are allowed to have them, but you're also allowed to access joy. And I would way rather spiral upward than I would downward.
Mhm. And so what does joy look like for you when you're holding it alongside grief? Like when you're holding it alongside a day that you're like really missing Lewiston, or let's just
Mm.
say it's his birthday, or what does it look like for them? Because I think there's people listening who are like, well, you're years out from that. Or people sometimes have said, have looked at me that way. And it's like, what does it mean to you to like harness both and have them both together?
I think it's giving them both a spot and being
Mm,
willing to process both. So I think you bring up a great example. My son passed away. We celebrated his 8th birthday. I never got to celebrate a birthday with my son. He passed away just shy of 6 months old. And so every year we've celebrated his birthday. Now we've chosen, I don't think that there's a right or wrong way to do it, but for us, we've chosen to do it in a big, very public way as a fundraiser for our charity. And it started off as just, I wanted to write a check to the hospital. Now has morphed into, okay, we have a charity foundation and we're, raising millions of dollars and counting, which is incredible. But there's moments in the planning process as well as moments on the day of where my brain goes, we shouldn't have to do this. Like, we
mm,
shouldn't have to like experience this. We shouldn't have to navigate like all of that. And it's like, why? And then, oh, this one, when a mom walks in with 3 kids, like I just get
mm,
so mad and so angry. And I that it just happens because I'm like, I had 3 babies, but on the earthly side of it, people only see 2. And you're always meeting people and they're holding that. So there's this piece on those days where it's like allowing space to be hurt, allowing space to be sad, but also like processing that emotion, not just shoving it down and pretending it's not there. And they say it's like you can process emotion within 90 seconds to 5 minutes, as little as. Sometimes we process emotions for weeks where you're angry or hurt or
mm,
sad or whatever, but there's piece of it. And so part of that is picturing like, how do I want to utilize the energy that I'm given? How do I want to utilize the time that I'm given? And often that will be the thing that clicks me out of, sadness, depression, despair, hopelessness, anguish, sorrow. It's like, oh, I don't want to spend the whole day feeling, anguish and despair and grief and anger and sadness. It feels way better to be in the moments of joy. And so, yeah, I'm allowed to be hurt and frustrated and sad and have a good cry. I love talking through. That's how I process. And I think a lot of females do that. And then I move into, okay, well, what the hell is my so now what? And the so now what is like, let's go do some good. Not the story that I would choose, not what I would suggest for, anyone who's a parent, like have your kid die tragically. But it's like, okay, this so now what? He's dead. Cannot change that fact. My so now what is I'm going to use the pain as rocket fuel to do some good and help change the world. And that is a hell of a lot better place. So I still have those moments, but I just don't like sitting in them for a really long
mm.
time.
Well, and I think you're making the choice not to sit in them. Like you've figured out how
Mhm.
to do that. And I think that is such a powerful thing to remind people that they have the choice to decide if they want to sit in that part of their story or if they want to say, okay, I am sad and I'm thankful and we're going to move forward. And I think that service, like you've talked, and we're going to talk later about, your nonprofit and that choice to do that is a powerful thing, because I think serving others is such an amazing way to heal ourselves. I've totally found that.
I don't know someone that's like been like, you know what, I'm going to be of service, and being like, well, that sure sucked helping out this person. Like, have you
Right.
ever met someone
Yeah.
that's been like, that was
No,
terrible? No, if you're doing it
no.
with the right heart and the right mind of just like, I'm here to serve and to walk alongside, you walk away like with your own soul renewed and
Mhm.
restored. And that,
Yeah, that's everything. It really
mm,
is. So I was reading this article kind of when I was prepping for this podcast, and I came across this article that was interviewed. Brene Brown was interviewed, and and this was really interesting because she said that the most vulnerable emotion that we have is not shame, it's actually joy, because it makes us feel fragile. And I can relate to this in my own life. The example she gave is, you're looking at your new baby in their
yeah.
crib sleeping, you're just full of so much love, you're like, oh my gosh, look at this amazing beautiful child, and like the next moment is, oh my god, what if they die, what if something happens to them? It's like we
Mhm.
don't allow ourselves to sit in joy because we're dress rehearsing tragedy, which is really just our brain protecting us, like on a very primal level. But that thing that our brain does keeps us away from experiencing joy. And she also interestingly said that people who are able to quote unquote tolerate joy the most practice some kind of gratitude. And you just said that when you were talking about, the scenario they said. And I've thought about that a lot, because sometimes I struggle with joy because life is giving you an example of something that actually happening. It's not just the worry. It's been, you've experienced it. And so to get back into the space of tolerating joy is hard to do. And I think that joy is a very vulnerable emotion and such an important one. And I'm curious, like, what you think about that, or how you framed that when you have the thing that you worry about has actually happened.
I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, the worst thing I think that any parent can experience is, outliving your child. Because in the way that we believe our story is written, I think in human nature, it's like, okay, you're born, you do school, then you maybe do university, start a business, get married, have kids, and you die. Like that's, I mean, ish.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get the general picture that I'm painting. And no one's like, oh, go to school, do the things, get a job, career, start a business, get married, have kids, kids die. Like you're like, wait, that's not part of my story.
Right.
And there is this piece, there's this piece that, yes, you don't want that to happen to you, but I think one of the things that I'm okay and I'm happy to share is, I do believe that one of a parent's worst nightmares or tragedies is losing your child. But I'm on the other side of the loss of, it's happened, and that's what I mean on the other side of it. We were doing this thing for our church and filming something, and they said, "Oh, um, I can't remember the exact wording, but talking about like, oh, I'm over it." And I'm like, well, I'm never going to be over the loss of my son. I'm on
Yeah.
the other side of it. And I've learned how to navigate grief, and I'm never going to be finished learning, because I think the grief will change as my seasons of life change and as the rhythms of life change. But there's this piece of it that I'm like, you know what? It's happened. And I actually deeply in my soul believe that it was A, meant to happen, and B, I'm better for it.
Mm-hmm.
And would I choose it? Would I be like, you know what? I'll be the one. Let me have my kid die. I'm not like, the Hunger Games over here where it's like, I'll be Victor. But because it's happened, it's truly shaped my perspective and how I show up and what it looks like. And I really believe it's made me better. It's made me a better parent. It's made me a better partner and wife to my husband. And it's made me a better just human being, because like I
Mm-hmm.
don't sweat the small stuff. I'm uber duper kind because I'm like, when people are dicks, I'm just like, the first question, I'm not like, F you, and like, bleh. I'm just
Mhm.
like, my first default is like, gosh, I wonder what tragedy or hurt they're walking through.
Yeah.
I remember what it was
Mhm.
like when I had just gotten the diagnosis, like your son's dying, and you're like, holy crap, my world's imploding. And nobody in the grocery store knew that. Nobody in the Apple store when I was trying to fix my phone, nobody knew that. And so people are walking around. And so I think it's really shifted that perspective. And so I'm on the other side of, my kid dying, and I will continue to fight for, a full abundant life. But I would share that with other people, that you can dress rehearse all the tragedy you want, but all that does is rob you of the joy. So rather than dress rehearsing tragedy, be in the moment. And I
Mhm.
know that hard things are coming. That's what I speak about. I'm like, that is the guarantee in life. And your hard will look different than my hard. But if all you do is dress rehearse the tragedy, you will miss out on every single amazing moment that's right in front of you.
Mhm. Yeah. I love that. What you said, the two things you said is that, you know, his death was perhaps meant to be, and it's made you a better person. Like, you love who you are because of that. I would say the exact same thing about myself and about what I believe. Um, because I think that my son Ethan lived his years, and I have this idea, and I don't know, I've never really shared this before, but I almost have this idea of like Ethan passing me a baton, like with his
Mm.
passing, like, okay, mama, you take it now. I was here, and he brought so much joy. I mean, he was known for like concerts in the hospital, like terrible voice, loved to do it, but just full of joy, and like he almost taught us about that. And then it was like, okay, you guys take it. And I think if you can look at your story in a bigger way, as part of a bigger story, as something mission driven going on in your life, in your world, in your family, that's how we get to the other side. Because if we just stay in that particular thing that happened, you will never get out of bed. But if you
Mhm.
see it as some bigger story that's being written, you can get curious about maybe like what that story is. And I think that you've done that with your life. And it's such an important thing for people, especially mothers, to see that, yes, this is the absolute worst thing you could ever imagine. And there's absolute joy to be had as well.
Well, and I always am so shocked when people are so afraid of death.
Mm,
Um, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I'm like, am I messed up? This is something I'm bringing up with my therapist, but I have insane high mortality awareness, like just about death. And then I
mhm,
for a living, which is like usually the second or third like largest fear in people's life besides death, of dying. And I mean, the speaking thing, that's for me, it's not for everyone, but the death thing, I'm like, that's guaranteed. Like, none of us over 8 billion on the planet will escape that. And so rather than, being scared of it, what if we run right at it and just be like, all
mhm,
right, what do you got next? Like, you're not going to escape it. So why don't we just go all in, because you aren't guaranteed. I always say that was something that was such a blessing for us with Lewiston, is like somebody gave us the gift of saying, you don't have a lot of time. This is it.
mhm,
And so when someone says that, like if you're like, hey, you're not going to make it till your next birthday, you're like, what do you mean? And you're like, okay, now I'm getting really, particular about where I'm focusing my energy and time. And we really use that as the shift to catapult us into just like making those moments, being present in that count.
yeah, I love that. I think one of the other things that I'm curious about is, when something awful happens to us, it's really easy for it to go from it's awful to I'm awful. Like this thing happened, there's something wrong with me. I mean, I remember times, and I still sometimes feel this way in like very minute moments, like, well, what's wrong with me? Like, what did I do wrong? Or, you know, it, my kid died, there's something wrong with me. I have this, everyone knows, everyone pities me. And it can just get to your self-esteem. And I'm wondering like how you've dealt with any of those feelings in your own life. I mean, you're such an upbeat person. You are, just a live wire, as you call yourself, and you really are, but you're a human being, and you're a woman, and you're a mother. And so how have you handled those, like, lack of self-confidence, or those feelings of there's something wrong with me because of my story?
So I wouldn't say I haven't struggled with what's wrong with me because of my story. I would say my struggle because I speak so much on joy, but I struggle with a mental illness of like, I'm battling the
Mm,
darkness, the negative thoughts.
mm,
So then it's
mhm,
like, well, what's wrong with me? How come I haven't figured this out? How come I haven't overcome it? How come I haven't like, healed it one time and it's done? Like, this is my body of work. This is what I'm pouring my life into. Yet it's one of the things that I would say I struggle the most with. And it's
mhm,
like, I share that. And so I would say I have thoughts of, I'm awful. This is awful. What's the matter with me? But not tied to the death of my son. I think I had some of those thoughts, like, what did I do wrong? Why is this happening? Like, am I being cursed? Like, you go through those moments, but that wasn't the thing that leads me to I'm awful. It's more so around, why do I continue to have the struggle? How come I haven't healed from it? What's the matter with my brain? Why doesn't it work the way it should?
mm. No, I think, and so when you're like in those moments, what do you do?
Man, I got a default list. There's probably five things, and I made a reel about it because I was struggling in April. Every year, I probably hit a really significant bump in the road for
Mm,
a variety of reasons. I think, your business isn't flowing, or it is really hard doing this stuff with it. Like, I go through this with our foundation and planning some of our big events. I'm like, I don't want to be doing this. I don't
mm,
want to be raising money because my kid died. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I get to raise money. And, you rally
mm,
the troops. But when all of those thoughts are coming, your brain gets 60,000 thoughts. And I would say that's why I talked about spiraling upwards. Brene Brown says that, like, spiraling
mhm,
towards joy.
mhm,
But when I can see myself starting to spiral downward, I have a few things that I've learned to do so that I'm not in the pit of despair. My husband's like, I remember you used to hide in a dark room for 2 or 3 days and it would, I'm not feeling good. I have the flu or whatever. But I didn't have the flu. It wasn't that. I was like, I was in such a mental darkness battle up here that I couldn't show up physically for other people. And so for myself, one of the very first things I do is I now tell somebody, like, hey, it's really dark in my head. I have suicidal ideations. Like, I think about, okay, if I get into a car accident, like, what guardrail could I run into? What bridge could I drive? Like
mm,
this. And I'm like, that is not a normal thing to think. And I've shared that with friends and like, I've never had those thoughts. And I'm like, oh, like they happen for me all the time. Um, and so I share with my husband, hey, it's starting to get really dark. It's really hard. There's a group of really close girlfriends that I also have that I would say, hey, can you start praying for me? Like, I'm not okay. I'm not in a good spot. And then I just go through my checks and balances. One of them is like, have I had enough rest? As soon as you are derailed and you're exhausted and you're not sleeping good, nothing looks okay. Nothing feels, like it's working in the right direction.
mhm,
I go and work out, and like I force myself to go to a class, not just like I'm going to go to my basement and lift my free weights.
mm,
Like, no, 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 I'm going to get in a room of other sweaty, fitness forward, focused people, because there's something about that energy that will start to shift endorphins and all of that. I look at my diet. That's a huge one for me. It's like your brain, the health of your brain relies on what you're feeding it and fueling it. And it
mm,
consumes 30% of your energy. So if it's consuming up to 30% of your energy, have I just been like on the go and here and over there and like not actually taking care of my body? And then like I do a lot of journaling, and if I need to, I book in with my therapist, and then a lot of prayer. And those are like kind of these check marks. And let me tell you, I don't want to do all of them. It's not like I'm like, yeah, I'm super depressed and everything sucks in my world and I'm going to get to the fitness class. It's like, I do not want to do this, but I know it's one of the things that will help move the needle. And it's not like you hit that checklist of 5 or 6 things and then all of a sudden instantly, the veil is lifted and the heavens shine down and everything is rainbows and, unicorns. It's like, okay, made it through like the last 4 hours. Kate, what I need to do to the next one. And part of that is just taking it in small chunks. And one of our favorite nurses that looked after our son Lewiston and was there when he passed, she said, as we were in our journey, I said, how are we going to do this? Like, I don't know how to do it. And she goes, we're just going to take it 1 minute, one
mm.
hour, one day at a time. And I apply that in my business now. I apply that as I parent, like, when you just want to rip
Yeah.
out your hair from your ever loving mind because you're like, I can't do this. And I was like, okay, I can't do this until tomorrow, but I could probably do the next minute. I can do the next 60
Mhm,
seconds and you can apply that when you're working out. I don't want to lift this weight. I don't want to do more squats. And it's like, okay, but I can do it for the next minute. I've got that. Okay, I can do it for the next hour. okay, I can get one more day. And one of my favorite messages by Levi Lesko is about like 5 more minutes. Just hold on for 5 more.
Mhm.
And if we can hold on for 5, then 5 leads to 10, 10 leads to 20. And
Mhm.
those have been powerful tools to serve me to get me out of my funks. And I don't attach shame to it. My brain wants to go to shame, wants to go to like, I'm a piece of shit. I should, you don't have this figured out. But being really clear, like there isn't shame in this. This is just some of my wiring. This is some of, hormonal things. And it doesn't make me a bad human. It doesn't make me a bad person. This is just my journey that I'm walking on, and I will get through it. And I have the evidence that I've done it before.
Mm. And we're humans, like we're not machines, like it's okay to be all the things that you said and be honest about those things. And because it's real. And I'm thank you for sharing all of those things, because I think people need to know that they're not alone in those places. And I also think it's important because when you're in a role like you are, or even like I am, where you have created something from, your child's death, and you've created an organization and you've raised money and you've done all these things, it doesn't mean that you are all okay with everything. Like you still have dark moments. You still have moments where you're like, why the hell am I doing this? I mean, I can, like when you said that, there are so many days like I'm throwing the towel, I'm done,
Right.
and we can talk a little bit about why that is. But I think it's real. And so just because you see people out there doing things doesn't mean they feel great all the time. Doesn't mean they even
Yeah.
want to do it all the time. Doesn't even mean that they even know what the hell they are doing. That's like the other thing. Like we're all just making it
Figuring
up as we go and figuring it out. But the secret sauce is that we just keep going. And so that's like the message that I heard in you. You're like, you found some practices, but also you're committed to the journey and
it.
curious enough about where it's going to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that.
And I do think that that's helped give me a deeper sense of understanding and deepen the body of work that I do. And why I'm passionate about, sharing about my mental health, why I'm passionate about speaking on resiliency, why I'm passionate about helping, others get unstuck, because I know what it feels like, because I'm not just
Mhm.
like telling a nice story, but not having any lived experience. And then I think
Mhm.
apply that into so many different areas. And so, yeah, it does suck going through it, but I have all the evidence that I've gotten out of it. And I really think there's a powerful piece in surrounding yourself with community and not doing life alone. And often, I used to feel like, well, I should just have this figured out, or I don't want to burden somebody. But I'm like, now when people ask if I need help, I'm like, sure do. And now people are like, are you doing okay? No, I'm actually not. And if they can handle and hold the news, great. And if they can't, that's okay. There's no judgment in it. I just like, they're not in a season to do that. But I've always been able to find people that will walk alongside me. And I mean, I share this all the time, but it's one of my favorite quotes. It says, it's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it. And I
Mhm.
think so often we just feel like we have to carry everything on our own. And I've learned nothing has to be done alone. And if you, surround yourself with community and show up how you want others to show up for you, that will come back to you tenfold.
Mhm. And I think it's like challenging ourselves to let other people in. I know I'm not very good at asking for help, or even I'm just very independent. I'd rather just do it myself. That's kind of sometimes my default. But lately, like my son has been sick and he's had a lot going on, and I've had to text you and be like, can you give my other kid a ride here, or can you do this for me? And it's, people want to help, and it's almost like we have the opportunity to give others an opportunity to show up and to help, and it's good for them too, which I think is an important thing to remember.
Well, and that's like the powerful piece. I think it's like we don't want to burden other people or look
Yep.
like we don't have it all together. But really, the powerful piece is like people are good and they want to help.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
tying this back to like we want to serve other people. And if someone's like, "Hey, do you need something?" and or offering it, that's something that I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I was useful today. Oh, I contributed today. Oh, I was a part of something." People want to be a part of something, and
We
it's like
do.
oh my gosh, girlfriend, let me drive your kids. Let me fill this gap. Let me come help tidy, whatever this is. And I think if we can step more into that and allow people to do that and also do it for ourselves, that's the powerful piece of saying, hey, what we're doing matters and is really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey there, it's Jess, and we're taking a brief pause to highlight this show's sponsor, the Heartstrong Collective. It's more than just a nonprofit, it's a social movement I founded to inspire people worldwide to embody resilience and grow through challenges. Through the Heartstrong Collective, we're dedicated to empowering caregiving families, investing in the next generation, and leaving the world just a little bit better than we found it. To learn more about our mission and how you can get involved, visit us at theheartstrong.com. I want to talk a little bit about nudges because I want to talk about your book.
Yeah.
But the book, Bring the Joy, it's all about nudges. And I mean, I've read it, and I read it before our last attempt at a podcast. And I just think that following nudges is so, I mean, that's kind of how I live my life. Like, I notice things and I follow them. But will you talk about how you've learned to follow nudges in your life and like where they've gotten you, and just even like how you decided to start following them or noticing them?
Mhm. The whole thing, so my book started, I had started writing my book before I even had children, because
Hmm.
out of all of my group of friends, I was like one of the last to get married. I was like 28, and I come from a small town in Winnipeg. I went to a Mennonite school, and so like everyone was kind of married by 20 or 21, and I seemed to be like this late bloomer. And I, at first attached a lot of shame to it, but I was just like, no, this isn't the guy. And I thought my next door neighbor was going to be the guy, but he, broke up with me. And I was like, if you break up with me, I'm never getting back together with you again, because we had, broken up many times. So then I moved to Calgary. It's 13 hours from where I grew up, my parents' farm in Manitoba. And I resided here and, doing all this stuff. But I had this nudge to go and have a conversation with a guy that I worked with, whose nickname behind his back we called Hot Ronnie, because he was pretty hot. And you can read about the full story in the book, but I just remember getting these nudges, whispers, like these things, these aches on your heart, where it's like, go and ask him how he's doing. And then asking him how he was doing, which led to a conversation. And we'd worked together for almost a year and barely had more than a work conversation. Like, he didn't know anything about me. I didn't know anything about him, like just so different. And I was like, I want to write a book about how following the nudges of your heart leads to like these massive, abundant blessings. And then you start to like go, oh, wait. And it was, Ronnie and I, it felt like we shouldn't even be together, because like we broke up and there was all these things. And I kept on getting these nudges, I call them from God, of being like, don't give up. It's not done. Like, don't quit on him. Don't quit on this. And I was like, but it doesn't make sense. He broke up. He doesn't want to be with me. But I just kept on being nudged to be like, be patient, go pursue him. Like, I confessed my undying love to the guy 3 times. He's like, I don't feel the same way. Like, you're really nice and we're just friends. And I was like, damn it, why am I getting these nudges? And I didn't quit on the nudges. And I think now I look in my life, these nudges in business to keep going. Last June, I almost quit on my business, where I was like, this is like, there's just no way that I'm meant to be doing this. Like, I was looking for all the evidence of why it didn't work. And I got a nudge to be like, you got to hold on for another 30 days. And in 30 days, I got a bunch more phone calls, a bunch more bookings, a bunch more clients. And that is definitely the valleys. But when I wrote the book, it was truly to share originally about the love story between my husband and I, and how staying consistent to responding to those nudges and really listening for them and taking action, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it feels like there isn't a guarantee, even when you feel like it'll look silly or stupid or, dumb or whatever, that it paid off. And my marriage is far from perfect. There are many days when I want to rip my husband's balls off. Even today, I sent him a text, he's going on the road, and I was like, you hurt my feelings. And can we talk about this when you get home? Like, lots of people, I think, see, these moments that we share on social media and forget about all the behind the scenes stuff and the fight that we've put in to be where we are today. But I just am like, whoa, the biggest blessings have come from responding when there isn't a guarantee on the other end. And that's what I believe is like leads to the abundant joy. And I saw that happen when I responded to a nudge to help a family at our Sunday school classroom, which was, a really powerful place of what they needed from me, and how that led me to meeting 2 children with spinal muscular atrophy 9 years before my own son would get his diagnosis.
Wow.
And so the book originally was just going to be about a love story. Then our son gets sick and then dies and all this. And I'm like, I still have joy in my life. the nudge to bring the joy to our son's life, the nudge to, okay, we're going to host a party rather than sit in bed. Like that was a choice. And I think if you can get good enough about like really connecting to your body, really connecting to like, what are those whispers of your heart? I'm like, that's where like the secret sauce is on how to have an abundant, full life. It's like those desires, those ideas, they're there for a reason. And I think
Mhm.
many people miss out on the greatest joys and blessings because they're scared because it's not a guarantee. So they choose a safer option rather than doing the scary, hard thing, which is responding to a nudge that seems totally crazy.
Mhm. I love that. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's so true. And I don't know if you can, I can think of things where, I don't know if you can, where it's like you had a nudge and you didn't say yes to it. And it's like, maybe what would have happened if you had. And so I think that but I also think it's so important, like for people listening, to know what a nudge is, and to, when you feel it, to learn to feel it and then to follow it. And I think that, because then, like you said before, you get evidence that you should follow it, right? Because then you can kind of see what happens. It's so important to build that evidence, but first we have to like take the leap, and follow the nudge. And I mean, in my own life, I live this way as well. And even down to like podcast guests, like sometimes I'm just like, on a walk, or I'm just, oh, the screen that,
So, right, you're like, yay.
yeah, I'm like on a walk or like drying my hair or something. I'm like, okay, who are the people that I'm supposed to reach out to? And like whoever comes to my mind, like those are the people I reach out to. And they may say yes or they may say no, but like those are my nudges. And it's very unscientific, but there's something to it that I think is really powerful.
I know that makes me want to look a little bit more into the science because I've started to geek out on how the brain works and how belief works. And even talking about visualization and manifestation and all of those,
Mhm.
I was, growing up, it was very woohooey. And now I'm like, oh, no, no, no. There's like science matched behind this of like why, people call it lucky girl syndrome, but it's not luck. It's just about, there's a science behind it. I'll share
Mhm.
this with you because as you're like, sharing the nudges. I mean, now it's like often I'll be like, damn it, I got a nudge. And I'll be like, hold up, you guys, I'll be right back. I got to go do the thing. So my girlfriend and I, we work out on Friday mornings at this great little group fitness here in Calgary. And then sometimes we'll walk over, there's a Starbucks and my mother-in-law works at it. So it's a nice way to say hi to her. And so I'm waiting for my coffee, said hi to my mother-in-law, and I'm standing with my girlfriend. Now I'm happily married, but there's this guy on his laptop and he's like, you can tell he's in it. He's working on a project. And I got a nudge to be like, tell this guy that what he's working on really matters. And instantly my body is like, no, that's so weird. He's going to think
Mhm.
you're flirting with him. He's going to think you're stupid. He's going to think you're dumb. And I'm like, I just finished my workout. So I'm not like looking like, like I'm got it together. I'm gross, no
Mhm.
makeup on, sweaty, greasy hair. And you're like, great, I have to tell this guy. And he's like a nice looking guy who's working on a laptop and be like, hey, your work matters. You have no idea who I am, but I want you to know it matters.
Mhm.
Now I can't shake the dang feeling. And I'm like, I wrote a book on the damn thing about following the nudges of your heart. So, like, you got to follow through on it. And it was wild to me. And I would say I did a shitty job of delivering that news. I was like, hey, I just want you to know I'm supposed to tell you that your work matters and to keep going. So if it's weird to you, I'm happily married, not trying to flirt, but just letting you know. And then I like scurried off. I'm like, get me out of here. This is uncomfortable. And that's, I think, why we sometimes don't take action because you're like, well, why would I tell that guy? Like, how does it matter? What does it benefit? Or like, what's the difference? To this day, I have no idea how that's impacted, and I might never know. I was in a
Mhm.
restaurant. Whenever I'm in this restaurant, crazy things happen. I got the same thing. It was an older gentleman. He was sitting at a table, and I will say I wish I would have stood up and done what I knew I needed to do, but instead I wrote it on a note and gave it to the server and was like, "Can you just pass this note?" Which was, again, it was something around like, "I want you to know that you matter and that you're worthy and that it's important for you to be here." And I was like, I left the restaurant. The waiter delivered the note. No idea what will come of it. Probably will never run into this guy again, but I just know I can't, I wouldn't be able to fall asleep because I'd play out, what if I didn't follow through on that nudge? And when I look at the big nudges that I've responded to, I met the love of my life, who I believe is my soulmate. I've been able to start a charity and have this abundant life with our son who passed, but has done life-changing work. Um, like it's scary and it's crazy. And
Mhm.
sometimes I think you get to see it come to fruition. And sometimes I think it's just a drop in the bucket
Mhm.
to tell people to keep going. So it feels silly and stupid, but now I can't, like, I'll even be like walking away. I'm like, damn it, I have to turn back and I'll go do the thing because I'm like, I wrote a book on this. I don't know like if it will matter in my lifetime or if I'll ever know, but I know that I have to do it because it's important. And so I
Mm.
definitely follow through. And it's scary and it's hard and often it will feel silly, but I just know that it's brought such blessings. So I just keep going on it.
I love that. I think that's, first of all, super courageous and cool. It made me think of, I was pregnant with my son Ethan, and a friend of mine from college was living in Boston, and that's where my son was born. And so I was having dinner with him, um, like right before Ethan was born. We're sitting at this random restaurant in Boston and talking about, like, I knew my son Ethan had a heart defect. That's why he was born in Boston, which I live in Chicago. Like, this whole thing, we're having this conversation. This man comes up to me and he's like, I feel like I'm just supposed to come over here and tell you that God is with you and your son.
Oh
And
my God.
and I was like, and he probably said something more than that, but I don't remember it. And I remember thinking to myself, like, it totally gave me the chills because he didn't know what we were like. We were sitting there having this conversation about what was impending, and this guy walked over here and said that to me, and like, I remembered that, like, that got me through like the early days of Ethan's birth and his surgeries and all the things, because I was like, okay, I'm like, this isn't random, like, I'm not alone, like, God is with me. And so it's like, I think God uses us as vessels. Like, I see, that's how I see myself in this world. Like, I'm just a vessel of whatever God wants me to be doing and however he wants me to be living out my life. Or, if you don't believe in God, you can insert word, but
Mhm.
I just think that that's what you're doing when you are sharing those things with people. And I just think it's super cool.
And wouldn't it be wild if the man at the restaurant knew the impact his words had, that on, the first
Yeah.
days and weeks of Ethan's life, you clung to those words, which were maybe
Mhm.
the very thing that got you through because he responded to a nudge and he was like, this seems crazy. I don't know this lady. Like, I have no evidence of how this will work out. But that's the cool part is years
Mhm.
later, you're able to share a random stranger in a restaurant had impact and gave you the courage to take another step, to go another minute, go another hour, keep going another day.
Mhm.
And that's just it. I'm like, okay, God, use me. Even if I look like an idiot or feel stupid, it's just a feeling. It eventually fades. And it's like, I probably will
Yeah.
never run into that guy again unless he's there next Friday after my workout. Then maybe I will. But
Then maybe you will. And maybe you'll find
yeah,
out about his project.
yeah. I
But
also wanted to be like, what are you working on? Like, do
yeah.
you have the next for cancer? Because if you do, I'd like to use this in my keynote. But if not, happy working on your,
Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah.
That's cool. I love that. I love that. So you've shared on your Instagram, like, just about, obviously your mental health, but also like your physical health. And I think that they're all related, right? And I've become more convinced as time has gone on and I've gone through more things in my life that like, a lot of times we want to focus on our mind, and everyone's talking about your mind and your spirit. But I kind of think the body is neglected often. Maybe not, as much as it used to be, but it's like it's like the conduit, right, to our mind and our spirit. And it's like we have to take care of our body. And I've gone through many seasons where I've not been able to do that, or I'm just completely in a lack of sleep because, and it's then you, like you said before, your mind and your spirit feel like crap. So can you share just about your own journey of taking care of your physical body, figuring out what works for you so that you can sort of continue in this journey that you're on?
Yeah. I, this is a really powerful question, and I'll be really honest and vulnerable with where I'm at. I've definitely been on an insane health journey. I've always been healthy, but out of all of my friends, I've always been the heavier one, the thicker thighs, the one with cellulite, veiny legs, all of the things. And I've gone in these ebbs and flows where I've been in like the best physical shape of my life, where, I was teaching spin 3, 4, 5 times a week. I ran a half marathon to, like, I just feel so disgusting. And I have some, many different pictures of all the different sizes and shapes that my body has come in. And part of that was due, I had endometriosis and celiac. And so, figured that out and then was able to get my health back in check. And, you have 3 kids, that changes a woman's body, especially when you do it in your 30s. And then, to be where I'm at today. But what I've come to terms with is one overall arching thing, which is there's 4 ways that we can take care of our overall health and our well-being, which is our physical body, working out. There is our mental, that's like, how we're feeling, our mind, what we're doing to take care of it, what we're consuming, what we're feeding it. Then there's the spiritual self, and for me that's a deep faith and this incredible piece of hope in heaven, and believing in a savior and the gift of grace. And then there's emotional health of, we talked a little bit about processing emotions and like going through that. And I think when you can look at all of those areas. But after I had my 3rd baby, I would say my physical health was in a brutal state. And when your physical health is in a brutal state, that can often lead to your mental health not being great, especially as a female. When you look in the mirror and you're like, God, my legs are disgusting. Oh, my thing is like my kneecaps are fat. It's so random. But I took a video and I sent it to my best friend, and I was like, F you and your nice kneecaps that don't have fat pockets around them. I'm like, no matter what workout I do, I just got these budgy knees. That's just the way they are. Like, I've literally been like, can you liposuck your knees? Like, these are all the thoughts that go through my crazy head. And so, yeah, it's a whole thing. But I speak on stage, and part of what I want to showcase and help people know is that to do your best work that's impactful and has meaning and will create differences, you have to be the best version of yourself. Not to say that you can't do great work when you're, not in peak and whatever, but my son was given a diagnosis that robbed his body of movement. And so I was like, why wouldn't I, in the body that I have, which this is only one I'm getting, while I'm as healthy as I am with all of the advantages, why wouldn't I take care of it? And so I've been on a journey, and I lost over 33 pounds. Part of it was using medication. I went on Ozempic, the big, controversy, but I had tried everything. And, I knew what to do. My husband was like, I've never seen someone eat so much kale salads and, green smoothies and juices in their life. I wore a constant glucose monitor. Like, we tested my hormones, and the weight wouldn't budge. And I always want to eat more. Like, thinking about food had become a thing for me, and it almost becomes this like possessive like thing that just consumes so much of my thoughts. And Ozempic was the way that I finally had to lose a bunch of the weight. I'm now off of it. I did it for about 6 months, went off of it, then kind of just went on a very like minimal maintenance dose. And, I had some side effects. My hair was super thin and whatever else, but I had never been that weight. I was like the weight I was in junior high, where, you're just like, wow, like I'm just in great shape. And so for me, it has been a journey. I'm off of it, but I will tell you, I've gained some weight back, and with my role and my job and the season that we're just in, I packed on, after coming off of a medication, I probably put on about 8 pounds, which I was like, okay, this is fine. Like, I don't have any medication. I got to fight this on my own. Then you go on the road, then you add in all the crazy events, then you add in all the travel, being at conferences, not having your regular routine. And I'd put on almost 15 to 20 pounds that back. And so I'm in this spot where I'm like, gosh, do I go back on it? What does this look like? I want to be the best version of myself. Why does that have to be so hard? And it can consume a lot of mental energy. I don't think that there's a right or a wrong way or only one way to do it. For me, this is about like, what are the 4 things, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, that I need to do to take care of myself and be the best version of it. And I still look in the mirror and go, man, I like, finally, when I was at the height of the dosing with this medication, my kneecaps maybe weren't as, fat as I once thought. But this is the stuff that goes through my brain, and you're like figuring it out. And when you've lost it and then you put it back on and you're like, oh man, you might not have the same amount of confidence, but for me, it's about being the best version. And so this is constantly something that I'm having to give my time and attention and energy to. And for any women that have struggled, I share about using medication. I share about my health journey, about staying consistent and, prioritizing, because when people say, oh, I don't have time, I'm like, that's a choice. We all have 24 hours in a day. And so how are you choosing to use it? And yeah, do I love, an in fitness class with a bunch of people? For sure. But sometimes it's a 20-minute workout in your friggin' basement with a pair of soup cans, if that's all you got. Body weight workout. Like, that is a choice.
True. Yeah,
And
totally.
I hope to remove the barrier and the stigma, that if you need to use medication, if you need a coach, if you need a nutritionist, whatever it is you need, go seek it out, because I think the worst thing that you could do is just accept your circumstances, continue to be a victim, and then sit on the sidelines and not make the most out of living.
Yeah. I love that. I think actually listened to this really interesting podcast about Ozempic recently. It was
Mm.
long, but it was really fascinating because the guy who was the guest, it was actually on Rich Roll, if anyone's listening and wants to go find it. The guy on it, the guest, pardon?
Which podcast? I want to go listen to this now.
Rich Roll. The guest was Johan, and I don't remember his last name, but it was interesting because he was an investigative reporter who has written a book about sort of the diet culture. I think it's called, I can't remember me. I don't want to say the red pill. I might be getting that wrong, but he was obese most of his life and went on it. And so talks about it from that perspective. And he's very transparent in terms of the pluses and minuses of it. But one of the big conversations actually was about getting off of it and how hard that is for people, and the challenges of that. And I just thought, I mean, people do it, like you said, for all different reasons, for all different amount of different ends of the spectrum of weight. And obviously there's health concerns with being obese, and all we can, I mean, that's a whole other podcast. But I think it's really important too to be honest about it. And I love that you're being transparent about that, because I think when you go through, and I've struggled with this myself, it's like you go through hard things, you have sick children, you don't get enough sleep. We also live in a world where, as in the caregiving role, and again, this is a whole other podcast I could go into, is that we're so willing to send the child to 5 or 6 or 7 different specialists, but we could give a shit about the mom that's caring for the kid and about her needs and how she's taking care of her body. And we just assume she's always going to be there and going to be healthy and going to be available. So I think this whole area of weight and body image and trauma and care, like all these things, is like I think a really interesting topic that I don't really think anyone's talking about, but I think it's really important because I know I've struggled with that and tried to do all the things and still not been where I want to be. And I know there's a bunch of reasons for it, but it's like, I don't know, I just don't think enough people talk about it. So I really thank you for sharing that.
Well, and I think there's so much shame attached to it. Because for
Yeah,
me, like
totally.
even now, like I'll be honest, I lost 2 of my closest friends because I went on medication for weight loss, and people,
Wow.
yeah. And so then I go, okay, well, were they my closest friends? Clearly not. If if that's
Right.
the thing that kind of separated us, and we're on different journeys and paths, and I'm grateful for the time that I did have. And again, there's friends for a reason, seasons, and a lifetime. And so if that was for a reason or a season, I'm so grateful. And I don't want to dismay or dismantle any of that. But there was judgment. There's people questioning my integrity, people saying, well, we can't trust you. And so, A, I want to be super transparent. B, I think because I do have a very public online profile, people think that they have the right and access to all of my life because I so openly
Mhm.
share. And then because I didn't share that right away as I was navigating it. And something that I've learned is this rule of thumb is like, I won't share an open wound, right? Like when I'm in it.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes with mental health stuff, maybe I will, because that's part of me being like, okay, Jess, you can share and help people out. And this is my accountability piece. But some things, like when I'm struggling in my marriage with my husband, I'm not like, hey, everybody, Ronnie and I are in the dumps. I threatened the big D like that just, and then you're getting all these outside opinions. But
Yeah.
I just start to share it. And my hope in sharing it is to remove the shame and the judgment. But there was a lot of it around it. And for those that don't struggle genetically, being like, if you look at my dad's side of the family, I have my father's genes. They are all overweight, they all have heart issues, it's bad. My mom's side of the family, like my brother's got what I call the skinny genes and I got the fat genes. And my whole life my mom has been this tiny petite and everyone's like, oh my gosh, your mom's amazing, and I've been balloon and this back and forth. And so I share about using medication, I share about my journey, I am sharing about this because I just hope to take away the stigma. And my goal is for any human being is to be the best version and the healthiest version of themselves, and to not take what you have for granted. And if you need or require medication, there should be zero shame in it. And I think there's a lot of things that you're getting fed through social media and depending on what you consume. But if that gives someone their life back, if that gives someone their confidence back, if that gives someone their like ability to move more freely and not have aches and pains, like why wouldn't we want that for them?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what I
And
will say The easy way for me, like I am battling wanting to go back on it so bad. And my husband said this to me. We've been, back and forth. I'm like, God, I just want to go back on it. It was so much easier. I didn't have to worry about anything, not counting how many grams of protein, not any of this, not when my next meal was or how I was feeling or what I've intaken, like none of that. I could just live. And I took out all of the crazy thoughts that I battle up here.
Mm,
And my husband goes, Jess, you do everything and you usually choose the hard way. He's like, give yourself some grace. If this is what you need, he's like, you're allowed to make it easy for yourself. And I'm battling
mm,
some internal stuff of like, hey, I want to be off it. If I don't have to be on a pharmaceutical, I don't want to be. So who knows what the hell I'll choose right now. I was like, no, I'm doing this. I'm committed. I'm going to take care of myself. But it consumes a lot of time and energy. And so I just want to give permission permission to other women, especially that don't listen to the outside voices, don't listen to the things on social media, don't listen to judgment from even your closest friends. Do what's best for you.
yeah. Amen. I love that. I love that. Before we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about the nonprofit because I think it's just, I mean, you and I have both gone down this path. We've both done that. We both can, and this could probably be another podcast about
Mhm.
that because people ask me about it a lot. I'm sure people ask you about it a lot. I mean, there's so many like pluses and minuses to it. I think it's not as glamorous as people think that it is. It's a lot of really hard work. I personally think like the not-for-profit way it's organized, and especially in the United States, I don't know what it's like in Canada, is something that needs to be changed, but that's like another topic again. But you're also putting yourself out there a lot with your work, and they all require like creativity, and they all require consistency, and they all require like handling rejection. And I'm just wondering like how you think about the work that you're doing with a nonprofit, putting yourself out there, like why you keep doing it, what you're hoping to gain from doing it. And because I think people are just generally curious about those types of things, especially other parents who've had children that have passed and are thinking about it. Like, what would you say to those people?
So my initial response when someone's like, I really want to start a nonprofit, I'm like, don't do it.
Do it.
Don't do it. And then I'll provide the context. And this is another idea, just as you were talking about. I'm like, oh, that would make a really good reel. Where I this is my
Mhm.
creative brain of what I share on social. But I think everyone sees these moments of like confetti cannons going off and the dance parties. And what
Mhm.
they don't see is that my home is completely destroyed for 2 to 3 months of the year. What they
True.
don't see is that sometimes my kids are eating chicken fingers 3 nights in a row, or we're opening up another can of lentil friggin' soup because
Mhm.
I didn't meal prep like I normally do when I'm not in the craziness of our season. What they don't see is that I haven't parked my car in my garage for the last 4 months because there's boxes upon boxes and a confetti cannon that exploded and things that need to be picked up and moved over, and all of these things behind the scenes. What I will say is that great things come with great sacrifice.
Mhm.
And so if you can be at peace that the thing that you desire to do will come with great sacrifice, and that not every moment will look like confetti cannons going off, and that you won't always have these big letters and accolades and all this glory, you have to be okay that in the quiet moments, like, do you have a powerful enough reason to keep going? Because it is not for the faint of heart. I don't think that some of the government rules and regulations set people up for success to want to raise money and make it really easy, which is kind of crazy. And
Mhm.
be ridiculed, and people will feel like they have opinions. And if you do have a powerful enough why and reason, and you are fully committed to it, then go all in and make it count. But this is not for the faint of heart, and it will require great sacrifice. And in the sacrifice have come some of the biggest and most abundant blessings. And for that, I am forever grateful for it. But every year I'm faced with, I want to quit. Why do we do this? And because our reasons are so great, because my husband and I have done so much deep work. We are committed to doing it, and I've set a goal, just for me mentally, of like, we're going to do this like we would raise a child. So for 18 years, and then I can reevaluate. And every year when I want to quit, my girlfriends are like, 9 more years, Jess, we're not quitting. We've got 9. Like, And so I've gotten this core group of really incredible women, and people come and go off of our committee, and you have like the odd weird volunteer that you're like, okay, like they're not part of the core. You're like, they don't have it. And then you find these amazing humans that are just like really, and you're like, where did you come from? And so what a big blessing. But it has almost ripped apart our marriage. It has almost like felt like it's destroyed our home and our peace and our sanity. But it also, like I said, has brought those big abundant blessings. And I know there's a reason why we're doing the work that we're doing, but it's been hard.
It's hard. Yeah. And I think it's really important to be honest about that too, because and I think I guess I would also like challenge other people listening to think about, you know, um can you join with someone else doing it? You know, are there other ways that you can honor this person's legacy? But I also ultimately believe like we are their legacy, who we are, the kind of people we are, how we show up in the world, how we love our family, how we love ourselves. I mean, that's their legacy. So, you know, I think it looks different for everyone, but I just wanted to I think it's important to be honest about that because people ask about that stuff a lot. Yeah.
I
So
thank you. I'm
no, go
sorry, I
ahead.
was just I'm like, thank you for talking about that. And I think you bring up a really good point. Like, is there an organization that's already established that you can do something in honor of, or that you can plan an event? Because what people don't talk about is like filing your corporate taxes, filing all your tax receipts. What's the process? What are the board meetings like? Like, I'm never pumped to go to my board meeting. It's like, oh God, we're fiscally, financially responsible. And so I always tell people, start with maybe just an event that's in honor of your child, especially if that's maybe why you're starting a charity, or like there's this deep
Mhm.
burning desire of like, hey, here's a need, and test the waters before you just jump all in, because there is a cost to it. There's things that you'll sacrifice from a time and energy and resource standpoint. And if there's already a great organization established, I felt like there was a gap. Like there wasn't someone doing what we wanted to do to fund these needs in the market. And there's still other people that do it, but I just felt like there wasn't enough for the spinal muscular atrophy community. And we've been able to do some really cool things. And we're hoping to really focus on some more research. But I look to see who's already doing it, and can you join forces?
Mhm.
It might look a little bit different than what you had, but different doesn't mean worse. It just means different.
Different. Yeah. I agree 100%. I would tell someone that, and the same with me. Like I also saw gaps, and that's why we started ours. And then
Yeah.
I think it's important to continue to monitor the gaps, right? Like, are there new ones? Are there other things that you could be thinking about? So, because it's going to morph and change, and ultimately, it's a business. So you're running a business with a purpose. I always tell people that too. I
With
mean,
very
that's
little like net reward financially to your
yeah,
family. This
right.
costs family money. This, and
Oh
I
yeah.
do take a part-time salary. I do. But we don't charge the foundation for mileage. I don't charge them for the internet. I don't charge them for phone use. Like there's all of those things, and there's a cost to our family, not just with like our resources and our time. There's all of that. I think you said it really beautifully. And I want to remind people of this, constantly looking at the gaps of where you can fill. And sometimes I have to remind myself that's not the need that I'm here to fill, even though I want to, or I might be able to. And that's really hard because as someone, I'm neurodivergent, ADHD, bing, 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 bing. But I have to be like, nope, back into my lane. And what we've chosen to do is staying in that lane, which for me, I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm letting people down. I could feel that need. I could do that thing. But I think it's going back and looking at the gaps and like, what did we commit to doing? Does this align with our purpose and values? And I'm grateful for a board who then can redirect me, rein me back in and say, okay, keep marching on this path, what we set out to do. And it's hard because you're like, well, if I don't do it, who will fill this need or help this thing? But my therapist once told me, she goes, you're not powerful enough to play the role of God. Trust that someone will fill that. And I wouldn't be where I am without a ton of therapy and a ton of inner work to help me navigate all of the crazy that is the battle when you're dealing with the aftermath of some hard things and a loss, and then creating a charity and all the thoughts that come along with it, because there's great responsibility to it, and it can really weigh heavy on you.
Yeah, I think that's really the truth. So I always ask my guests two questions as we wrap up, and I want to ask you them as well. The first one is, what is one belief or practice that's helped you get from where you were to where you are today? Something that you is like just sticks out for you that you think people should know about.
It's possible to figure it out. I had it on
Mm,
a
love
sticky
that.
note on my desktop for 3 years, because I had this belief that there's certain areas of my life, and I'm still fighting through one of that. And I won't share until, like, again, this is a wound that's still, I would say, very much so oozing and not healed. But I go into, oh man, you're such a screw up. How have you not figured it out? Da, da, da. And then I'm reminded by the sticky note that for 3 years, I had to have it in front of my face every day when I was at my desk that says, it's possible to figure it out.
Mm.
And so, whatever darkness, whatever hard thing you're going through, whatever you are challenged with, whether it be a roadblock or a hurdle, if you can cling on to it's possible to figure it out, your brain can give you the evidence of new and wonderful ideas that you could take action on, to get yourself from A to B, or from A to Z, or from A to H, whatever it is that you're looking at going. And that has been what I've used to my advantage and to my leverage, to be able to keep pressing in on the days when I want to quit and it feels impossible, is to lean into what is possible.
Mm. That's such good advice. I think I'm going to put it on my laptop as well.
It only took
And the
me 3 years to actually remember it. So hopefully you're less than 3 years, Jessica.
hopefully it's short. No, that's so good. I think that's really important, especially when we're in seasons where earlier this year, my husband started a new business. And so there's a lot of that, it's like hard to do. And
Yeah.
there's, all about that. And so you do have to kind of just keep reminding yourself, it's just one step at a time. It's going to work out. It's going to work out, and I think that's, gosh, such good advice for life. So my final question is, what is one thing that you love about yourself, that you love about Jess, because it's been born through adversity?
What I love about myself, is my energy and the fact that I don't give zero shits what other people think about me anymore. So
Mm,
I believe I was gifted with this abundant fullness, gregarious live wire that just, like, it oozes out of my soul, is just ready to go and get after it. And I'm so grateful that I've stopped worrying about what other people's opinions of me are,
mm,
because that has allowed so much freedom and authenticity to shine through in all that I do, and not worrying about what other people will think of me. Not to say that I don't navigate that, but it's something that I truly love because I think it has become my superpower and the
mm,
thing that brought the blessings and the opportunities. And so I'm grateful for that gift, and I definitely don't take it for granted.
mm. That's beautiful. And I think we can all learn from that. Jess, it's been such a pleasure talking with you today. Just, you have incredible energy and you're doing really important work. And thank you for being so transparent and honest with us about your life, because I think that will help all of us as we navigate ours. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm an open book. I mean, I think, as you can see and share.
Mm,
So if I can help, or someone has more questions or wants to connect, please reach out. Like, we are wired for connection. And I mentioned it to you, Jess. I'm like, if there's ever a way that I can help, there's been so many good people, that have opened up a door or shared a resource or held my hand or walked me through something. And so I feel what a privilege and a blessing if I can do that for other people.
mm,
I won't do the work for you, but if I have a tool, a resource, a strategy, a connection that will help, man, I'm here for it, because there's enough for us all to be part of a successful
mm.
world. So I'm here to serve.
And so if people want to get in touch with you, they're interested in having you speak at their event, they want to learn more about your charity or your coaching, where can they find you and how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, easiest way is jessicajanzen.ca. I'm Canadian, so we did a .ca. It was still someone random owns .com, and like, we can't get
Hmm.
a hold of them. It's like some weird person. But if you go to Jessica Janzen, Janzen with a Z, I think, because you probably have a lot of American listeners, you can find me there, and you can book a call to connect for a keynote or for coaching. And then also find me on social media. My favorite platform of choice is Instagram. I'm the Jessica Janzen. Shoot me an email. My contact info is on there. And don't be a stranger. Like I said, I'm here to serve. Jessica, you are such an incredible soul. And I just want to say thank you for coming prepared, because I've done some podcasts where I'm like, I don't even think this person knows a thing about me. And B, I see your heart and I see you serving. And just know that I'm cheering you on, because I think you're doing important work that is blessing so many other people. And maybe you don't hear it enough, but my encouragement is, it's possible to figure it out, and just need to keep going, because the timeline looks different. So
Thank
I'm cheering.
you.
Mhm.
Thank you. It was fun to spend time with you.
Yeah, girl.
Thank you for listening to Becoming Heartstrong. I hope you found today's episode inspiring and applicable to your life. If you enjoyed the conversation, please subscribe to the podcast, leave a review, and share it with a friend. Before I go, this is just a quick reminder that I believe in you, and I believe that you too have the ability to become heartstrong. I'll chat with you soon.